Yo guys, Paunchy here, and today we're going to be working with the MPC, specifically how to layer drums on the MPC Live 2. Now, I had a comment recently from Apex1. Good looks on this video. I came from using DAWs and I'm now learning the Live 2. On DAWs, I like to layer my drums to make whatever I have in stock sound different, as well as to give them punch. I was wondering what was a simple and effective way to do such on the MPC instead of having a couple of tracks with different drum sounds working together. I appreciate this video, thanks. I appreciate you, Apex1, and I definitely wanted to do a video addressing this specifically, so that's what we're going to be covering today, layering drums on the MPC Live 2. Let's go. So, layering samples, I'm going to just walk us through from the beginning here. So, go ahead and do an empty project. You can also do this in any project that you're currently working on, but you don't have to, which to me is, it's a little easier this way, in my opinion, so that way you don't have to like save the project or anything like that, because ultimately what we're going to do is load the samples, layer them together, and then you save that as a new sample which can be used in any other project. So here in the main screen you go to assign samples. There are no samples loaded into the project yet. Tap browse. So hit browse, and then from here you want to go over to samples. Like, we're gonna layer some drum samples today. But you can apply this to anything, you know, even melodic samples. But let's go ahead and layer some drums. So rather than be in the drums section, you just go to the samples section. So this gives you all the samples you could ever need. So a quick way to get through this, because there are a ton of samples and way too many to scroll through unless you have a lot of time on your hands. But to keep this video shorter, we're going to search the directory. So I want to layer some kicks. So let's go ahead and type kick. And there you go. You have all kinds of kicks. I don't have very many other samples on here. I just have the default ones that come with the MPC Live 2. So in this case, I'll teach you guys one cool trick. You know, even if you're using a kick for hip hop or anything really, a cool trick is to layer an acoustic kick with a more synthetic kick. So all the acoustic samples on here are pretty good. So let's go ahead and take a acoustic kick that we like, and you audition them, of course, by pressing play, or you can set this to automatic audition. But I just like to do it manually, so. So what am I looking for here when I'm going to layer an acoustic kick with a synthetic kick? I'm essentially looking for the acoustic kick to be a little more top-endy, if that's even a descriptor, a little more high-endy, in the sense that you want kind of that click sound from the acoustic kick. That one's not bad. That one has a pretty good little like click sound to it. And I don't mean a metronome necessarily. That one's pretty clicky. I mean, essentially you'll notice that these are kind of just missing like the low end in a sense, you know, because unless you're using like a sub kick mic on an acoustic kit, then you're not really getting those sub frequencies that a lot of drum machines are known for, specifically like 808s, for example. So I kind of like that one. It's got a good thud. It's got a little bit of click to it. So we can just add a couple of them. So you select the sample you want, hit load, and then it loads super quick, and then that frees you up to add more samples. That one's pretty clicky. So there's a couple acoustic kicks. So now let's go down to like some hip hop kicks. That's a pretty good one. That's a pretty good one. Let's see. I like that that one has some beef to it. It has some real low end, so I'll load that one as well. Okay. So anyway, go back to, so now here's your sample pool for the project, which is really handy. So any of these samples that you load into the sample pool, you can manipulate within your project. That's why it takes a split second to load them into the project. So now we go back to main and then go to warp samples. And then in here you'll be able to adjust the sample if you need. Like say we just loaded some of your own samples into here and maybe they need to be trimmed a little bit. You can do that here. I'm not going to really go too much into this, but yeah, here for example you can edit the start point, you can edit the end point here. I'm just going to leave those the way they are because they are the Akai samples. So what we actually want to do is go to the second page here of the samples page. So now here we have this sample is assigned to this pad for now. If you go to the next pad, you'll see that nothing is assigned. So this pad just happens to be this kick. Which one is it? It's that very last one that I added. That was the one that I mentioned had a little bit of beef to it. So just to keep things simpler for me, I'm going to replace that first one with one of the acoustic ones. I'll try this one. Okay. And the reason I'm doing that personally is because I want the acoustic one to be on top as far as frequency goes. The acoustic one will kind of be on the top of the frequency spectrum, or I guess the right, however you want to look at it. And then the hip hop one will be kind of on the lower end, like the bassier end, or the left side of the acoustic spectrum, so or frequency spectrum. So we'll have that one in the first slot, and then the hip hop one in the second slot. So if we play these together, or if we press the pad, and let's go back and trash this hip hop one, or rather than trashing it, we can just turn it down like that. So that's what the acoustic one sounds like by itself. This is what the hip hop one sounds like by itself, and then this is what they sound like together. So you have a lot of good low end in that, and then you also have a little bit of the higher tick sound. So it's very possible that maybe you want to edit one of the samples a little bit in terms of maybe one of them has too much low end. So if that's something you want to do, you go back to the first sample page here. Oh, excuse me, you go to the effects page here. And then this is where you can add any of the insert effects that you normally would to a track or to a master bus if you're creating a song on here. So, and this counts for each individual sample. So if you go back to the sample page here, you have layer 1 and layer 2, and it says the names of each one down there. If you go to the effects, that goes for each individual layer. So on, say, our hip hop one has too much low end, you could go into the effects, go to EQ, and then you would want to do a high pass filter, HP filter, and then you can edit that to where you can set the frequency over here to cut out some of the low end. Now, generally, I'm not going to go too far into this, but generally sub frequencies are more between, like, 30 and 50. So if you have too much of that sub frequency in there, then maybe you'd want to filter it off at like 40 hertz, for example. So that's just kind of an example of something you could do. Personally, in this case, I don't want to do that, so I'm just going to turn that off in case I want to come back to it later. But I'm just going to not use a high pass filter for this because I purposely chose two samples where one is a little more high end or high frequency for a bass drum, and then the other one is a little more low end-y. So that's my thought process with this kind of thing. But again, say you have some raw samples in here, say you have something you sampled directly into the MPC, you still have all these options to edit them. So a couple other things I'll mention. These are the levels for each one. This is the panning for each layer. This is fine tuning, so you can change the tuning of one of them. So of course, fine tuning is just like it sounds, fine tuning. It doesn't drastically change the tuning of the sample. And then semi, that's basically drastic tuning. So if you really want to pitch something up or down, this is where you can do that. But again, I liked the sounds of these samples individually, so I kind of already had an idea that they would go together. But of course, sometimes one sample might be louder than the other, so that's where you need to adjust these. And of course, yes, you can use your Q links, but just because of the way the camera's oriented here, I'm not using the Q links. But so you have all these options here, which is amazing. If you go to the third page, you have even more options as far as velocity goes. Now, if you go to the fourth page, you further have another way of looking at the pitch, the level, the pan, and the velocity offset for the layers. So, and then you'll see over here, all layers, you can adjust the attack, decay, which has to do with the envelope, the amplitude envelope specifically, and then the cutoff and resonance that has to do with the filter. So if you mess with the cutoff, so there you have it. So I hope that helps you guys. You do have some other options here that I'm not going to go through today, but leave a comment down below if you want to see a video messing with more advanced layering or anything involving layering or anything involving the MPC. So hope that helps you guys, and I'll see you in the next video.